Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of Rise Urban Nation. It's your host, Terrell Simmons, and I got a special guest. I got living legends in the building, and we're going to get into a nice, healthy episode. I can't wait. We had some great conversation before we got started. Glenn and Jonn, thank you for being here. For the people who don't quite know who you are, tell them a little bit about who you are, and then we're gonna go on the journey. I need to know how you two met and created this beautiful thing together. So, tell the people, who is Glenn and Jonn? And I know that's a deep question, and you could take that as far as wide as you want to go, but give us the breakdown.
Go ahead, Glenn.
Mm, nice. Well, that's a good start. Go ahead, Jonn.
All right, great. So, man, I didn't know we was going that far back. So I am an entrepreneur. I am a by trade computer programmer. Nowadays, I think they call it engineering, right? Software engineering, but back then it was computer programming and information systems. I'm dating myself, right? And I used to write custom applications, database applications for small businesses, for large corporations. Some of my clients were Sara Lee, Spring Industries, who provided Walmart all of their bedding goods, things of that nature. Champion, I said Sara Lee, Dudley Products. I am currently in Spring Lake, North Carolina, which is near Fayetteville, North Carolina. And I am here working in the community in our family, you could say our family-owned real estate company that I kind of inherited from my mom. I came as the marketing director. That's my second love after programming, the internet, websites, that whole world. Like back in the day, I had a site called mbnet.com. We were the second most active information portal for anything minority.
Wow.
Minority business news, minority business directory, minority business associations. You search for that, you would find mbnet.com.
Wow.
And so I got into the world of marketing, right? But you think like an engineer standpoint, I got into it because we was just looking for a way to let the people on the East Coast know what the people in Texas know, what the people in North Carolina know, what the people in New York knew about minority business, and Chicago, and so on and so forth. So we just pulled them all together so that they could go one place and find out what's happening in the world of minority business, mostly Black-owned businesses.
Shoot, we need that. We still need that today. I hope you ain't shut down the site. We need some more of that.
Well, I've been thinking about it. I need some young folks to get back in the game. The site's still there, but my energy is not particularly in that space. But I definitely, with the right group, would be interested in doing something like that again. And because of that, I learned about SEO, and I learned about how to rank, because like we were like the first page of Google. You type in the minority something, you would see mbnet.com. Um,
Mm.
so here I'm back home, Spring Lake Fayetteville area, managing this property management company. Found myself getting involved in the community. Um, Ended up being the president of the Chamber of Commerce for a few years. I think about maybe about 5 years run all together, being on the board. And like Glenn, found myself in economic development.
Mm.
Like, how did this happen? Um, and so, and then how we met is through being a part of the International Black Summit.
Mm.
So there was my career path, there was Glenn's career path, and back in 1994, I did a course, if you will, attended an event called the International Black Summit. I was participating in landmark education, found out there were a group of Black people having a transformational kind of conversation. Glenn had already found out about it a couple of years earlier, and he might tell you a little bit more about that. But that's what brings us to you today, because there's a place in the Declaration, which we'll read a little bit later, that talks about what we stand for.
Yeah, we'll
And
definitely get
one of
into
the
that.
areas that we stand for, it says building economies responsible for funding our communities.
Love
Right.
that.
And so, Glenn and I, being, finance people, economic development people, kind of number people, kind of resonated to the building economies responsible for funding our communities. What is that? Right? What does that look like? What are the components of that? Whether it's a self-sustaining community like a local community or a national initiative concentrating on building and funding our communities. So maybe we'll get into a little bit of that today, as well as some of the other things.
Oh
So
yeah,
how
we
we
definitely
doing
gonna
on
get
the
into that.
intro?
Well, you doing just fine. So
Okay,
now,
good.
Glenn, you have to take this home because your brother John just dropped this black say it again. What's the name of the group again? Black what?
The International Black Summit.
International Black Summit. He done said that name like 30 million times already, and people probably like, what in the world is that? How
What
come
is
I
it?
don't know about it? So
Well,
Glenn,
well,
tell the
well,
people what that is.
well. Let me kind of give you how it came together really, and it was really two Black women who were in this program at John mentioned it earlier, landmark education. So they're doing a course together. One was
Mm-hmm.
getting married, the other one was getting a divorce. And they said, what would it be like to have some kind of organization, some kind of commitment to having a conversation to supporting Black men and Black women being together? And so they started to network. And back in those days, we're talking about in the 90s now, this was before we had the proper conference call. They had the daisy chain. So I could call one person and that person could call, I could actually call two people on that daisy chain. And then the person could call somebody else. But the problem with the daisy chain is that once you get 5 or 6 deep, you can't hear the conversation. So you had to kind of repeat it. So just like you do in the network, you have like a repeater. So we were repeating it to go through 15 or 20 people. And so it just got unmanageable and said, look, we got to meet. So they ended up meeting in 1991 in Atlanta, Georgia. And the folks, now these are people that don't know each other. Okay, so this is not like, we all knew each other, let's get together. There was a letter sent out to various locations, and it basically said, this is equated to the gathering of the forefathers of this country. Nothing less than death in your body should stop you from being at this event as a person of Black African descent. And so 120 of us showed up. inside of the commitment to making transformation available to the Black community. And
Nice.
so one of the things that occurred is, you have like this little networks. So we had like, we had this big room, and we had different places where people would meet to that had, similar interests. And so one was, funding our community economic development. There was another one for health. There was another one for relationships,
Relationships. Mm-hmm.
nurturing relationships, supporting our youth, ending the murders of our men, women, and children. Now, interestingly enough, so there were different groups around, and so we got together, and we said, let's put something together that represents the whole community. So this Friday, actually Saturday night, after the event ended officially, a group of people got together and created what is now known as the Declaration of the International Black Summit. And it captures the essence of the people who are at the event in terms of what's possible. So I really think that Jonn, you want to read the declaration for us?
I most definitely do.
Okay.
Can I share it, Terrell? Can I
Yeah,
share my
go
screen?
ahead. Share it. I would love to hear this declaration.
So as Jonn puts it up, this was brought to the group that Sunday after these guys worked on it overnight. And I think we changed maybe one or two words in this particular document, and was presented to the group, and everybody accepted it.
Do you want to read it, so just in case people are not listening to the audio experience, they can hear the declaration as you say it?
Definitely. And what I'll add here, Glenn was actually in the room with all this happening. He's kind of giving you the aftermath, but you can imagine 120 Black people having a conversation. So it wasn't, hey, how you doing? How you feeling? These were conversations like, what does it mean to be Black? What do you mean? What does it mean to be Black? I'm not Black, right? I'm this. And there were people from different places around the world that we're all associated as Black. So you can imagine the conversation that's going on about, Black people are like this and Black people like that, and I'm this and I'm that. And, and as everybody shared, like Glenn said, they took all of that. They took all of that and came back with, this is what we heard that captures what was in the room. The Declaration of the International Black Summit. We declare ourselves, our community, and all communities whole and complete. There's nothing to do except be. We assert that we are responsible for generating community as possibility and distinction. We listen for and grant being to the possibility and creation of unpredictable results. Our conversation of, about, and for those of African descent is one of power, self-generation, abundance, responsibility, unity, and integrity with the possibility of being. We stand for the expression of our spirituality, ending the murders of our men, women, and children, building economies responsible for funding our community, maintaining wellness of being in our bodies, providing human services, establishing nurturing relationships, altering the conversation of who we are in the media, empowering our youth. we declare that our community manifests itself in the world as a contribution in the transformation of the universe. That was in
Yeah.
Atlanta, Georgia, October 7th, 1991.
I love this. So I leave this up here. I want to dissect
Okay.
this with you all for a quick second, because like this resonates with me on so many different levels. As I'm sure that when people hear this, it's going to resonate with them. Like, let's start with the we declare. I like how you bolded the we declare ourselves, our community, and all our communities whole and complete. There is nothing to do except be. Man, I'm thinking about what does that even feel like to just be? Because I don't know when me as a black male could just be out in American society and just be without having to be anything. Does that make sense? Like, so I'm curious, when you see that, what does that mean for you? Like, what and what resonates with you when you for the declare part?
Well, you know, when we look, well, let me speak for myself, because it's always easier to speak, and that's one of the things that we do inside of the summit space. We speak from the I, because it's not about speaking for we as a community. What is it that I see for myself inside of the conversation? And so, whole and complete, there's nothing to do except be, has me be in touch with the opportunity and possibility of oneness, that there's nothing to fix, that there's nothing, that I have all I need. Now, if I have all I need, a lot of the things, my complaints and some of the other things that I have disappear, because I'm focused on being whole and complete. And and what's in front of me is what's in front of me. One of the things that I'll also add around this whole conversation is that all the work that we do is about having people be present, being present to now, not the past, not the future, but now, focusing on now. And so inside of that, that's certainly being whole and complete, is being present to the now, because I'm here now, I'm breathing, I'm alive. Okay, what am I bringing to the party? John, you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I sure do. So, Terrell, so this is our declaration, right? And as you said, it's interesting that it's like certain things are bold, like we declare, we assert, we stand, and we declare. And so we're the ones saying that we declare ourselves, our communities, and all communities whole and complete. There's nothing to do except be. It's like we're making a declaration, throwing down the gauntlet, right? Like speaking something into existence that doesn't exist yet, right? Creating a space that doesn't exist yet. We're speaking it into existence. And how we get there, like Glenn's saying with the being present, we have a series of tools and distinctions that we use in our annual summit event and our other events and courses presented by the International Black Summit. And these tools, these distinctions, allow us and the participants to look into their lives and see, one, what's their vision for the Black community in the world, and what's there that might be in the way of taking it to the next level, right? So when we say there's nothing to do except be, we're declaring there's nothing to do except be, but just speaking it doesn't actually have you be there in that space. Like as a Black man, you actually want to distinguish some of the conversations that you got about, like in your example, being a Black man, so that that's up on the table so we can see which one of those are empowering you and which ones are not empowering you to be who you authentically are. might might be a way of kind of looking at it. So we're declaring this, and then we go to work, and how do you actualize this? Like you can't be in a conversation, and this might ruffle somebody's feathers. You can't be in a conversation about slavery and a conversation about abundance and a conversation about greatness at the same time. There's nothing wrong with the conversation about slavery, as an example, but it's not the conversation of abundance. We got access to both. But the mind, as we say, no two things can occupy the mind at the same time. Can't be in both of those conversations at the same time. So in order for us to be in the space of our vision being fulfilled, like what you're committed to having happen, what you're bringing to the community, we've got to recognize the past, right? Be clear of where we want to go in the future, but be present to where we are now, and what's occupying our mind now has an impact on where we're going and how quickly we can get there.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And yeah, so let me get your lovely faces back in here. I'm sitting with I saw also that declare was on there twice. Was that intentional to bold declare twice? And what was the intentionality behind that?
Well, again, well, go ahead. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they intended just to say, we declare, we assert, we stand, we declare. I think that's more, we can see that now. What was in the space was what was in the space. And what they saw was there's something we were declaring. There was something we assert. Like we assert that we're responsible for generating community as possibility and distinction. That's an assertion, right? So we declare something, we assert something, and then we stand for something. We stand for our spirituality. We stand for ending the murders. We stand for building economies. We stand for nurturing relationships. We stand for empowering our youth. We stand for that. But I think at the end, after all of that, if we declare what we declare and we assert what we assert and we stand for what we stand for, then the last piece is we're declaring that our community manifests itself in the world as a contribution in the transformation of the universe. I think, and Glenn, you can add to this. I think that's how it came out, right? And I just happened to pick it apart that way because that's how it lives for me. Declare, assert, stand, declare.
Yeah. So for me, the languaging was that we wanted to have something positive. We wanted to have something that actually put people at choice, so that people can actually choose for themselves. So in the assertions, you've got lots of different flexibility, and you can see yourself in those particular areas. And the again, the declaration is putting it out there. Standing for is this is how it is, but where do you want to be? Because one of the things that we work on is vision. We're very vision oriented. So it's almost like if you don't have a vision, you don't have your oars in the water. You're not never paddling. You're allowing the tide to take you where it's going to take you rather than directing where you want to go. And so our whole thing is creating that vision and giving you some tools to stay present to that vision, because you're going to have stuff coming at you. One of the distinctions that we use is no right way to be. Now that one was a huge one for me. Because here I am, I 25 years, I've been studying the right way to do things, the most efficient way. You're writing programs and so on and so forth. You're trying to get it as efficient as possible, and the shortest, quickest, fastest is quote unquote the best.
Mm-hmm.
So when I heard this distinction, no right way to be, I'm like, wait a minute. I all my training, all my work that I had done, all of the, it's like kind of like, well, wait a minute. If there's no right way to be, let me stand here and be present to what life is presenting me. And what I discovered is, yeah, I could get it done in my particular way of being, but how many other ways of being am I missing out on that I didn't see because I had it rigged that it had to be done a particular way.
Mm-hmm.
So now stuff is coming at me that I couldn't even imagine. Like I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't even imagine it because it didn't fit in my box. And so that distinction allowed me to sit, think, allow the universe to support me in whatever it is that I'm up to. And
Mm-hmm.
by golly, the universe supported me every single time.
Mm.
So again, keeping it present, be present to what the opportunity is in this moment.
Yeah, they say the present is a gift, so you will be gifted and you'll be rewarded if you can stay in its presence. Um, I think about what that event must have been and what it was like. It seems like life changing, energy, transformational, and I want you to go back to the moment when you went through this. These declarations were made, and then think about what that was like for you and what did you start to learn about yourself um in the year of being in that space of and receiving this declaration and this wonderful gift? What did you start to
Well,
learn
well,
about yourself once you
let me start when I walked in. So I walked into the space and I was doing some work in New York. We created a group called People of African Descent Empowerment Group. And so we were doing some work in New York. And I walked in that space on that Saturday and there was like a murmur. There was like, oh, that's the brother from New York. Now, 121 people up in the space. Like I said, I'm meeting for the first time, but I'm getting this love, I'm getting this energy, I'm getting this excitement about some of the
Right.
things that we had gotten done. So I'm already moved. I'm walking into space moved, and of course I introduce myself, and applaud, the whole thing. So that energy was just, it was like, wow, this is amazing. I've never been in a space. And now remember, we've got some Kenyans in there. We've got people from the Caribbean. We've got people from Canada. We've got people from different all parts of the U.S. At
Mm-hmm.
this particular event. So you've got the opportunity of networking,
Mm-hmm.
um, and building relationships that transcended our individual cities. So to
Yeah.
be in this conversation and to be present to the possibility of us being together in a way that I couldn't have done by myself. So you've got that energy, the what's how's it go, the sum of all is greater than one. So
Mm-hmm.
you got all of this love, energy happening, and working with people and thinking about what the possibilities were, what we could do in our individual cities and collectively in cities together. So all of that got churned up, the relationships, just a uplifting, empowering conversation every time I'm in it. And this is 30 plus years, and I'm still having empowering, uplifting conversations to get me to whatever is next for me, you know.
Man. Now
And I,
I'm a go ahead, John. I'm
yeah,
sorry.
I was just gonna add. So he talked about the first time. I'll talk about the last time,
Okay.
right? And I just happened to be uh, 1 year. My mom during right before the annual summit event, my mom passed.
Mm.
And I had just gotten to DC. I had just gotten there. So we have this event somewhere around the world the first weekend of August every year since 1991. So this year it's in Buffalo, New York, and Antigua, West Indies, and it's going to be virtual. We were virtual last couple of years because of COVID. So before then, we had been in Ferguson, we had been in Belize, we had been in a number of different places. We were in Washington, D.C., and I had just gotten there.
Mm-hmm.
And I got the news that my mom passed, and I just broke down because I had just seen her. And so being able to kind of just give myself the room to be with what was actually happening gave me a particular kind of comfort. The next year, as the event's going on, there's this wall where you write down the ancestors. And I went over to this wall to write my mom's name, and I just broke down. I felt like I had been holding her hostage because I wouldn't let her go on to be an ancestor. And I got present to that, got real sad. People came by and comforted me. But the power, Terrell, is they allow me to be. They didn't try to change it, didn't try to change me, didn't try to tell me it's going to be all right, she's in a better, none of that. Because, if you lost someone, and I don't want to hear that right now. I'm bad. She ain't here. And so being in an environment where you get the room to be who you are and discover who you are. And I saw that I had been holding my mom hostage in my mind. And I was able to let her become an ancestor so I can now have that relationship with her, if that makes sense. Like up until then, it's like suspended. She wasn't here and she wasn't there. And then the next one I'll tell you, just here recently, earlier this year, I had a conversation with one of the people on the team, and I had gotten really upset. And for me, we call that a trigger. For other people, it's probably called a trigger too, but in the summit, the way that I had gotten upset, right, we call it a trigger. And I get loud, and I had gotten loud with this person, and I was definitely not being my conversation of, about, and for those of African descent is one of power. I wasn't being that, right? I just went in at this person. And then after it was over, I went and worked with a couple of the other facilitators to sort out what was going on for me. And when I first kind of got a cut at it, this person represented a group of people that upsets me. You know, and I know we all got something like that. There's a type of person or types of people, if they just being themselves, but they're annoying to me, right? They're just being their ever so lovable, wonderful self, but they are annoying to me. I'm just keeping it real. And she was one of those people. But what I saw was she represents a whole population of people. How can I be someone committed to the transformation of the universe and I can't reach a particular population of people? I haven't given myself the room to be able to be with them. And through this work, I was able to see that. And now I got more room for this particular type of person. Because it wasn't just that person, it wasn't just her, it was who she represented. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
you know, who she represented for me was millions, literally millions of people that I now have a different kind of appreciation for, a different kind of access to. Now, do they still annoy me? Yes, they do. But it's not in the way of me being able to have a relationship with them. And it's not in the way of me fulfilling on my vision for the Black community and the world. And so it's that kind of work that we do, like Glenn did in 1991, and we've done every year since then.
You know, Terrell, let me underline a couple of things. So Jonn went through several of our distinctions, and these distinctions are the tools that we use, that we provide for people to allow them to be present and to be in their life. So the first thing was trigger. So he noticed that he was triggered. Noticing is another, and we use these words, but we use these words in a particular way to get access to ourselves through them. So the other thing he did was he noticed that he was triggered. So noticing is also a distinction. So we got trigger, we've got noticing, and then tracking. He actually tracked what actually was his upset. So, and then he got cleared. So he went, now you could do that by yourself or you could do it with other people, but clearing is creating a space for what's happening. You know, just like you would go to a clearing, you go to a clearing, it's a clear space. We've got these conversations that we have in our head that are raging sometimes, and sometimes we just need to be cleared. So these four distinctions allow people to be in their upset, track what's going on, what's the source of that upset, because it's not the person over there, it's over here in me. That trigger is in me. The other thing that's so interesting about the work that we do is that trigger is pointing to a commitment that we have, distinguished sometimes or undistinguished. And so when we get present to that thing that's causing that, again, we have choice. So he had choice. So he didn't have to escalate it. He was where he was at. He noticed it. He tracked it. He got cleared, and now a new opportunity opened up. And so those things happen. And if you can imagine, you've got 70 to 100 people in the room, each having their conversations, their triggers, all of the stuff that they have. But inside of Jonn's share, I got something about my mother, or I got something about something else that he was dealing with. And so you've got all of these people that are having these conversations, these breakthrough conversations around creating some insights for themselves, while and that's the person standing up dealing with the facilitators, because the facilitators are the people in the front of the room. We haven't even talked about them. I'm gonna have Jonn talk about the facilitators after. And so you have people having these insights, kind of like I like popcorn popping. You know, one pops over here, then another one pops over there, and another one pops over there, and so you got. So if you can imagine this energy and this in the space of people finding out things about themselves, discovering things that maybe they've been carrying all their lives, and this moment opened something up and gave them some choice that they didn't have before. Jonn, I want you to talk a little bit about the facilitators and the work that they do.
Well, before I go to them, I think Terrell had another question, and I'll see if I can answer it inside of the. He was about to ask one, and then I started sharing. So I want to.
Yeah, I had a bunch of thoughts that came through. There was I'll see if I can get to it. But some of the things that came through was there was another gentleman that came on my podcast. I believe his name is Aaron, and he talked similar to this about trauma tracking, noticing where trauma, resides for us in the community. No, individually and also within community, and I'm thinking about, how sometimes, especially in America, we like to lump all our Black people in one community and think that we are all a monolith, and we're not all a monolith. We come from different varieties of backgrounds, flavors, ideologies, bloodlines, and so forth, and how things show up for us might show up differently. And I'm also thinking about, like, community for us, how, when you look at Blacks and Pan-Africans across our community in the diaspora, how we sometimes have complications in building and working in community because of that trauma, from whether it be from our past, current, or the evidential cycle, right, that we're in, the spiral that we're in. And I'm learning how does one start to learn, whether it be from what you have learned, or from past experiences, how to better collaborate with each other through those triggers and trauma tracking and being centered.
I think one approach is like what the International Black Summit provides us with. It provides us with provides us with two main things. One, a common vision. Right? We have a common vision. We're all committed to the manifestation of our vision for the Black community in the world. Right? So that's the first thing, that we got a common vision. And then we look through the Declaration kind of like as our guiding posts, I don't know if I want to say values, but things that we can use to track who we're being in the moment. That's one. And then the second thing is that we've got a set of tools. And we got like a common set of tools that we can use in order to have conversations with each other. So I would say, in terms of what you're asking, where one could start, if it's a community conversation, would be, let's look at what's our community vision. What is the thing that's common about what we are all committed to? Not the details, but what's the thing that's common about that, what we're all committed to? And then we can start looking at what are the ground rules for how we're going to engage each other. Because see, here's the thing, Terrell. It's not that we don't get mad. It's not that we don't get upset. It's not that we agree on everything, because we don't. But instead of me putting my hands on Glenn when I don't agree with them, I go to a distinction first and like, okay, let me check out what's going on over here with me that's got me wanting to put my hands on Glenn, right? So I get to look. And the same thing is happening for Glenn or anybody else in the community. We got a set of tools we can go to. So if we were to look at the African American community, the Black community as a whole, then, you know, I would say we would want to have what's the common vision, right? Because if we don't have a collective vision, then there's like no way we can get there. But, you know, we got to do enough of the work that, okay, we don't have to get into the weeds of it. So, for example, if we took a line out of the Declaration, right? Building economies responsible for funding our communities. So let's say, okay, we're going to focus on that. So the first question would be, what does that mean? What does that mean to you, Glenn? What does that mean to you, Terrell? What does that mean to you, so-and-so? What does that mean to you? And let's get that up on the table. That's what building economies responsible for funding our communities. What does that mean to us? Right? What is building an economy? What does that mean? Funding our community. What does that mean? Let's get it up on the table so we can listen. And Glenn has asked this question about the facilitators. The facilitators listen. What's in the space? So we would ask that question, and then as people talk, you'll start to hear that building an economy means this to this person, that to that group of people, this other thing to that group of people, but there's something about it for everybody. There's something about it that if we had the say of controlling our economic impact in such a way that we were all taken care of and we were building a legacy, something about that resonates with everybody.
I love that.
Then
Now,
go ahead.
I was gonna say I wanna really hone in because it seems like the facilitators hold such a great piece in this conversation and dialogue. What is the role of the facilitators, and tell me a little bit more about the facilitators. Like, who are these facilitators? How do you decide who's going to be a facilitator and what role they play?
Well, there's a bit of training, to say the least.
Okay.
Because we don't have a manual.
A bit. A bit of training. Not a bit. A bit. Y'all can't even see how far this reaches, right? Okay, go ahead, Glenn.
And the training is about listening authentically to what's occurring. So Jonn talked about this. There's a commonality that exists in the speaking of the 10 people that spoke around building economies. And we're listening for what's that bridge, what's that connection, what is that thing that would have everybody be connected. Because the truth is we're always connected. We're not present to being connected. And we have blocks into that connection. And so the work that we do as a facilitator is listening the space. And also, as a facilitator, it's not like I am giving you my opinion. No, that's not what we do. We're in it together, listening together for what the opportunity is. Because without you, I don't have the insight that you're bringing to me. So everybody's bringing something to the party and contributing, including the facilitators. And the facilitators are inside a particular conversation from one annual event to the other. So, for example, this year, and each year we have a different either inquiry, a declaration, something that we're working on for ourselves. So this year, it's as I become present to I am, what is to rest in the I amness. So this year we're looking at that whole conversation, and we've been looking at the whole I am conversation for 1 or 2 years. Maybe I think it's actually 3. But the point is, as we look at it, we work together on what does that mean for us, so that we're prepared at the annual event because we've done some work on it ourselves. Now, not like, again, not like we're leading you down a particular path, but we've done the work with ourselves because everything is introspective. You're looking from the introspectively. So that's where the gain is. And you asked about trauma. That discovering that trauma inside of these insights gives us that space that we go back to whole and complete, so that we're able to be whole and complete, because I've now got a new insight, another choice, another possibility that I hadn't seen before I had this conversation. Yeah. So all of those things, yeah, go ahead.
I was like, I love the whole and complete piece, because I think so many of us are looking to be whole and complete. And I know some people are going to listen to this and be like, man, I want to be whole and complete, but I can't make it out there to, New York or wherever. What would you say is the steps that you would give the people to start on this journey and process? I know, visit the website, get in line with the mission, but what's some practical steps people could take to becoming whole and complete, and start to align some of these things that we're talking about into their life and daily practice, and build community? Like if they're not next to the community that you offer, how could start to build the community right where they're at?
So I'm gonna take a stab at that one, Glenn. So let's start with take the path of least resistance. Right? So I know you asked the question, what can they do if they don't? But I'm going to answer it with, first, see if you can. Right? So if you can participate virtually, if you can't make it to New York or Antigua, see if you can participate virtually. Right? You can go to blacksummit.org/ASE, blacksummit.org/ASE, and see if this resonates with you, and see if you can be in the space, because this is an experience. This is not a training. This is not a coaching session. This is not read this book and you get it. This is you're engaged in a conversation, and while you're engaged in the conversation, listening to other people sharing what you're sharing, you see something. People see something they hadn't seen before, right? And they can't unsee it. Once they see it, that's it. They got it for the rest of their life. So, and then that happens multiple times a day for 3 days. So the first way is take the path of least resistance, go to the source, right? Participate. If you can't participate this year, participate the next time it's available. You can go to our website. You can go to where we've got interviews of people that talks about how they use our technology, how they use the distinctions in their work, in their organization, in their family, in their community. So that would be the next way, to listen to how other people are using it and just model that. Getting to the place of whole and complete is a work in progress, right? Glenn, you mentioned it. Terrell, you mentioned it. Trauma, the dismantling of trauma to get to a place of whole and complete is a work in progress, right? We've got to can't do it all tonight, but it's a work in progress. So I would say if you can go, go. If not, go listen to the interviews. Go to blacksummit.org, click on podcast, listen to what other people have done. And we have just created a offering where we'll bring this work to your community. Right, so it's called the Power Community Transformation, and we bring these tools to your community to work at the level of community, whether it's a physical community, like San Diego, like a real place, or it's a neighborhood in that community, or it's a collection of engineers as a community. We can bring the work to the community so that you have access to it. And then
it's like almost.
Go ahead.
Last thing you to say. No. Go ahead.
I'm just looking to see if there's. I think I'm gonna stay on that path. Like I'm gonna stay on the path of get plugged in, right? Versus what do I do if I can't? So let's not go there if I can't. Find a way to right? Find a way to do so. Either come to a Summit Share Sunday every week. There's a group of people talking about the distinctions in their life. You can come to that. Every month, they record an interview of someone that's having this conversation, using in their lives, from planners to teachers to lawyers to a whole variety of people. And then every year we have an annual event. And then, now we can also bring it to you. So find a way to get yourself like that movie. Y'all seen Hamilton? Y'all seen Hamilton? The play? No. You never seen Hamilton? And he said, I want to be in the room where it happens, the room where it happens, the room where it happens, right? You want to be in the room where it happens because that's where it happens. So I know I'm not quite answering your question like go read a book. No. Get in the room somehow where it happens.
Let me also add this, that we've got different spaces. So we've got a space for young people, ages 7 through
17.
Well, actually 8 through 17. Then we've got a young adult space that's 18 to 35. And I'll tell you a little quick story about that. We got over to Africa, and people were asking us, well, we have a youth summit and the adult. Oh, youth. Okay. Well, my 35-year-old nephew can come to the youth summit. No. So what we discovered in traveling is that in Africa, youth are considered youth up until 35. So what we did is we created a young adult space specifically for youth, and that gives them the choice so they can go into the adult space, which is 18 and higher, or the young adult space, or the youth space. And we do that because as you mentioned earlier, this whole conversation of trauma, this whole conversation of safety, a safe space to speak into, to say what's going on with me, and it's a judgment-free zone. So I can say what's going on with me and not get judged, feel like I've gotten judged. So those are all going on at the same time during the annual event. And then, of course, we've got events throughout the year for different offerings as well.
I love that. And I love that you're paying it forward too by bringing it to different spaces. getting people equipped with the tools that they need so they can continue to build like this movement forward, and keep creating these spaces in our community, which is what much needed. Um, Now, I want to end off like this because I feel like I could talk to you guys for hours, but I don't do like the Joe Rogan type podcast where you can talk for 3 hours. Uh, uh, so I want to talk about what projects are you currently working on, and where can people find you? And I know you've been talking about that, so you could regurgitate some of that, and then anything else that you want to bring to this space, that people should know about, in connecting with you.
Well, I'll go first on this one. So one of the things I mentioned that I was executive director for a business improvement district. So the current downtown Jamaica has 3 bids. They're combining. So
Mm-hmm.
so I may not be the executive director over this combined bid. So I'm looking to see, and I'm actually inside of a conversation of designing the rest of my life. So I'm looking at it, I'm saying, well, you know, do I want to do this bid work for the rest of my life? No,
Mm-hmm.
not really. What is it that I want to do? And so I've worked with the youth inside the International Black Summit, but what I've discovered and what I'm designing right now is how do I work more with youth? Like bring this International Black Summit, Youth Summit conversation to as many youth as I can. I tell you, and I guess no coincidence, I'm sitting in the park today, and there's 2 little girls. Well, a gang of two little girls are on a not a slide, a swing. They're
Yeah.
swinging, hanging out. A group of girls and guys come over and attack one of the girls. I mean, literally attack it. And I'm sitting on the bench. I was, doing something in my phone, just kind of chilling, relaxing a little bit. And I got up and I got into the middle of it and I stopped it. And it was like, and I said to myself, that's what your life work is. To not have these 2, I mean, they were 9, 10, 11 years old. I mean, and 2 were attacking the one and they were about to start stomping her. And it was like, no, I am not letting this happen. And so I'm clear that for me going forward, my life is going to be about youth. One of the things I want to do is I'm writing a book on financial literacy for teenagers. So that's the work that I say that I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. So I'm designing that right now.
Love that. Congrats.
Yeah.
Wow,
John?
Glenn. Whew. But thank you for being there.
Yes.
Like thank you for being there. For the 2 younger girls as well as the older kids that attacked them. Like we don't know the impact that we make, but simple things cause major things to happen later on, like tsunami. As for me, because the summit doesn't do projects, we do training, we do development work. So we don't, as an organization, we don't do projects. But as for me, I am going to take this conversation that I've been having tonight about building economies responsible for funding our communities, really begin to look at that at a different level. Like, so one of the things I'm looking at, Terrell, is how do we move this $1.7 trillion that African Americans spend in the United States in a different direction? How do we move that in a different direction? How do we engage that space to shift that income, that revenue, that spending, right? I don't have like an answer to solve it, But what I know is it's an economy.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
It's already an economy, right? What's missing is the funding our community part.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's probably where I'm going to be leaning. Like, how do you begin to redirect? Because there's already an economy. I think we would be the 16th largest country if we were an independent country, right? There's already an economy. So how do we redirect it in a way that empowers and funds our communities? And let's get some clarity around that one. And I'm throwing that one out as like a big project, a big impossible goal, as our friend Alubide would say, right? Not sure how that's going to happen, but I think that's the direction that I want to take, and in the meaning between time, I'll be working with people on building their sales funnels, getting their marketing messages out that's committed to transforming primarily the Black community in that regard. But the big picture is that. And then the other piece is, and these are just my big goals, there's 1.3 or 4 billion people of African descent around the world. And I'm looking for a way. So if any of your listeners have any ideas about that, I'm looking for a way to get a message to them.
Mm-hmm.
Like, just get the message to them. Get a message or a series of messages to them. That's every woman, man, child of African descent on the planet. It's at 1.3, 1.4 billion. And by the time, 10 years from now, it'll be about 1.8. So how do we get a message to them? Even if the message is only the declaration, like how do we get something to them to give us a place to stand collectively? And I'm not married to what the message is as long as it's empowering, but how do we do that? How do we build an infrastructure to do that would be like the goal. So I know it's kind of out there, but wouldn't that be so cool?
It would.
Wouldn't that be so cool that we had something set up and like that they at least got to hear it one time, right? Got to hear something one time that's different than the conversation that's been propagated in the media, like something that's uplifting. So,
Yeah. So
wow.
that I love that. And to all my runners out there that's listening, all of the people who share and tune in, y'all run tell everything else. Run tell this. Share a friend, tell a friend to tell a friend. Share this like you share the crying Michael Jordan meme when you talking bad about your friends or some sports team. Go share it. Keep sharing it. Like, post, reshare this so we can get this up for Jonn. I want to come back one day and say, "Hey, yo, Jonn, this episode has been shared 1.2 billion times." Wouldn't that be amazing?
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing. And to your first goal, like the funny thing about it is I had a conversation with somebody about this probably like, I don't know if it was last season, but maybe about 8 episodes ago. And we were talking about how when our parents, or probably just our parents was alive, like how the economy ran. Like you would go down the street to Uncle such and such's name to get watermelon. You would go across town to get some hair cream from Aunt Brenda and
Auntie
them.
Miller or something.
Right.
Yeah. You would spend a half a day or a whole day traveling around the whole town to get stuff. People would trade and barter, and the money cycled in the community a lot longer. Wouldn't it be nice if we did that globally? With our brothers and sisters in Africa, Jamaica, Trinidad, New York, we had our global economy. We sharing resources in the dollar and investing in each other and
That was
building
Garvey's
community.
vision.
That was
Yeah.
Garvey's vision.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
his vision. He saw it back then. What the impact of us working together, building together,
Right.
spending together. Powerful.
Hey,
Powerful.
gentlemen, this has been a beautiful, beautiful conversation. I'm gonna have to have you back again so we can have more of it. Before we go, tell the people where, give the website again to the Black Summit and what's coming up next.
blacksummit.org. That's summit.org is our website. We have an annual event coming up starting on August the 3rd. That's a Thursday, running through August the 6th. That's a Sunday. We're going to be on the ground, as we would call it. We're going to be in Buffalo. We're going to be in Antigua. And we're going to be virtual all at the same time. So we're having one summit, 3 locations this year. And so we're going to be facilitating it from what we're going to be. Oh, it's going to be amazing. I don't even want to get into how we're going to do it, but for the last 2 years, we've been virtual, 2 or 3, and we've had annual events where people was engaged up until 9, 10, 11 o'clock. They didn't want to go. They didn't want to go to sleep, Terrell. They didn't want to go to sleep because they were getting their life. So we're going to be doing that kind of work in 3 places. So we're going to be on the ground at the hotels, and then we're going to be virtual.
Right.
It's
so
$250.
listen, what was the cost? Say
It's
it again.
$250 for adults, for seniors, and young adults. It's $300 for 35 or 36 to 54. It's $100 for the youth.
All right.
You can get all of that at the website.
Yeah, I'm gonna get the information from these gentlemen and put it in the show notes if you're driving you didn't get it. So if you ain't in is it Antigua or Buffalo?
Antigua, Buffalo, New York, or virtual.
Yeah. So if you ain't in Antigua or Buffalo, get online and be on time. Thank you, gentlemen, for coming. I appreciate you. I salute you. Keep doing the great work that you're doing, and we'll catch you on the next time.
All right,
thank you,
brother.
And acknowledge the work that you're doing too, brother.
Yes.
Thank you. Appreciate you.